Video notes for Chapter 3, Lesson 3. Today's target is to use properties of operations to make equivalent expressions. So what are equivalent expressions? Well, equivalent expressions are expressions with the same value. So if you look here, expressions with the same value, period. An example would be 7 plus 12 equals 12 plus 7. Okay? They are equivalent expressions. So if we look down here at number 3, we're going to talk about some more properties of operations, such as the commutative property in words, and that is changing maybe change that. Changing the order of addends, which would be for an addition problem like 7 plus 12. 7 and 12 are the addends, or factors. So if we want to do multiplication, factors, like 5 times 8 equals 8 times 5, factors would be 5 and 8, does not change the product or sum. So what that means is 5 plus 8 equals 8 plus 5, just like we talked about up above, right here. Okay? It works for algebra too, because we've been talking about algebra a lot. A plus B equals B plus A, or B times A equals A times B. Okay? Changing the order of the addend or the factors does not change the product or sum. So let's go on down to the associative property in words. Now, it's kind of the same thing here. We're changing the grouping sorry how sloppy this is, grouping of addends or factors does not change the sum or product. So, an example would be that if we were to take and look at, this is a parentheses right here, 7 plus 4 plus 2 equals the same thing as 7 plus 4 plus 2. And if we were to change those operations to multiplication, it would be the same as well. If we were to change it to 7 times 4 in parentheses, and then times 2, that would equal the same thing as 7 times parentheses 4 times 2. Okay? Same thing with algebra. If we were to take a look here and look at some algebra, it would be A plus B in parentheses plus C equals the same thing as A plus B plus C. And if we change it to multiplication, like let's say A times B times C, that would still equal A times B times C. Same thing. Okay, so let's do some examples here. The first one we have right here, and I think if I look at this, I'm not sure where that plus 8 came from, so we're just going to ignore that for right now. You know why? I see where it goes. This plus 8.4 is supposed to go right over here, so we're going to draw that in. Okay, so let's take a look right here at this one. 7 plus 12 plus 6. Okay, well, if we were to simplify that, we could use the associative property of addition, where 7 plus 12, put that in parentheses, okay, plus x, and 7 plus 12 we know is 19, and we'd still bring our x down right here, plus x. So we simplified that by combining our like terms of 7 and 12. Okay, so that's how we simplified it. Now, if we were to take a look here at b, we're going to simplify this again. Now remember, this has got, in parentheses, 6.1 plus x plus 8.4 that got moved over there somehow. So we're once again going to look at either the associative property up here or the commutative property. Okay? Because we know if we change the order of addends or the grouping of addends, it will not change the sum or product. Okay? So let's take a look at the commutative property. We're going to look at that by changing the order, 6.1 plus 8.4, put that into parentheses, plus x. Okay, so now using the associative property, we're going to combine these two, 6.1 plus 8.4, well, that equals 14.5, okay, plus x. So I realize this might be kind of confusing right now, but when we moved and rearranged these two numbers, these two values, and put them together right here in the parentheses, that was using the commutative property. Okay, when we added them together right here, that was using the associative property. Okay, so confusing? Yes, I know. That's a time for you to ask questions if you're confused about this. Okay, so let's try another one. Okay, so we're looking at C right now, okay, of simplifying 5 times 11 times y, okay? So, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use the associative property, which would make it look like this, right? Associative is where when you change the grouping of either factors, in this case since it's multiplication, so it would be 5 times 11, because we're changing the grouping, because 5 was outside of the parentheses and now it's on the inside, we changed the grouping, okay? And now we're just going to multiply. What is 5 times 11? Well, it's 55. And we would still multiply that 55 to y, so it would be 55y. That is our answer right there. Now the next property we're going to look at is the addition property of 0. So, in words, that means the sum of any number and 0 is that number. So, algebra would look like this. Put that algebra would be a plus 0 equals a. With numbers, that would look like this. 7 plus 0 equals 7. That one's pretty easy for us to understand. Next slide. Okay, so real quick, let's take a look here at the multiplication properties of 0 and 1 in words. So, they are the product of any number and 0 is 0. The product of any number and 0 is 0. So, for example, 9 times 0 equals 0. In algebra, a times 0 equals 0. And it doesn't matter what it stands for, what that variable stands for, any number, any variable, times 0 is 0. So, let's take a look at 9 times right here, number 8. This should read as 9 times 0 times p. Okay? So this is where we're going to use the associative property of multiplication to change the grouping. Okay? So we would change it from, right now it's going to look like 9 times 0 times p. We're going to change it so that it's now equaling 9 times 0 in parentheses times p. Well, we know that 9 times 0 is 0. Just keep multiplying that by p, and 0 times p equals 0. Okay? So, let's take a look at the next one. B. Simplify 4.5 times r times 1. Well, we're going to use the associative property here of multiplication to change our grouping, because we have that r variable in the middle where when we look at that, boy, we don't know what r stands for. So let's write that as 4.5 times r times 1. Well, r times 1 is going to be r, right? And then we'd still have that in parentheses. We'd still have our 4.5. And 4.5 times r equals 4.5 r. Okay? So now, what you need to do is you need to take a look at number 10 here and try 10 by yourself, and 10a by yourself, and b by yourself, and c by yourself. And remember that using the associative, you'll be moving some of the groupings around, and with the commutative, you'll be adding your like terms if you have any. A hint, you'll be using the both in A. Good luck.